There are moments in life when you look at the pieces of your journey and wonder, why is this happening to me? You pray, but heaven seems silent. You wait, but nothing seems to move. You give your best, yet the doors remain closed. It's in those seasons of uncertainty that faith is truly tested. Not when everything is clear, but when everything is confusing. You see, God's plan rarely unfolds according to our schedule. Sometimes He delays not to deny, but to prepare. Sometimes the silence is not absence, it's alignment. You may not see the full picture now, but God is weaving something beautiful behind the curtain of time. When life doesn't make sense, it's easy to lose hope. But faith is not about understanding everything. It's about trusting the one who does. Your confusion today might be the preparation for your clarity tomorrow. Your tears today might be watering the soil for your future miracle. Don't rush what God is arranging. Don't force what God is forming. When the time is right, everything will make sense. Until then, trust His timing, because His timing is never late, never early, but always perfect. There are moments when you feel like life is passing you by. You see others receiving their blessings, walking through open doors, celebrating answered prayers, and yet your own heart is still waiting, still hoping, still believing. You begin to wonder, did God forget about me? Did I miss my moment? But my friend, God's timing is never delayed. It's designed. He is not late. He is deliberate. Every moment, every step, every silence, every setback has been woven into the divine fabric of His purpose for your life. When you don't understand what God is doing, remember that He doesn't measure time the way we do. Our clocks tick in seconds and minutes, but God's timing operates in seasons and purposes. You might be living in a chapter that feels like waiting, but God is already holding the final page. He knows when to open the door and when to keep it closed. He knows when to say not yet, because He's preparing something greater than your mind can imagine. When Joseph was thrown into the pit, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for crimes he didn't commit, it looked like his destiny was delayed. But those years of apparent silence were actually years of design. God was shaping his faith, refining his heart, and positioning him in places he could have never reached on his own. When the appointed time came in a single day, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. That is how divine timing works. It may take years to prepare you, but only moments to promote you. Sometimes God's delay is His mercy in disguise. He's protecting you from things you can't yet see, from burdens you're not ready to carry, from enemies disguised as opportunities. You might think you're ready for that next step, but God knows what lies ahead. If He allows it too soon, it could crush you instead of bless you. That's why His timing isn't late. It's loving. His timing isn't slow. It's strategic. You see, when you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust that beneath the soil, unseen and silent, life is taking root. God works the same way. While you wait, He's working. While you're praying, He's positioning. While you're wondering, He's weaving together all things for your good. Every disappointment is still part of His design. Every delay is still under His direction. Nothing escapes His control. We often want the promise without the process. But if God gave you the promise too early, you wouldn't have the strength or wisdom to sustain it. There's a maturity that only comes through time, through tears, through testing. The delay you're resenting today may be the very thing developing the depth you'll need tomorrow. Don't curse the process that's preparing you for your purpose. When you begin to trust God's design, you stop comparing your journey with others. You realize that someone else's now doesn't mean your never. Just because they've stepped into their season doesn't mean yours won't come. The same God who blessed them has not forgotten you. He's simply preparing you for a different timing, a different purpose, a different glory. Even Jesus, the Son of God, lived under divine timing. For 30 years, He waited before beginning His public ministry. 30 years of silence before 3 years of miracles. If the Son of God Himself honored divine timing, how much more should we trust that God's plan for our lives is unfolding at the right pace? So stop saying, I'm behind. You're not behind. You're being aligned. Stop saying, it's too late. God doesn't work with expiration dates. He works with appointed times. Stop thinking your delay is denial. It's not. It's design. And when the moment arrives, everything will shift suddenly. Because when it's your time, no person, no failure, no devil in hell can hold it back. Keep walking. Keep believing. Keep trusting that your Father knows exactly when to release what He has promised. Don't let impatience rob you of your preparation. Don't let comparison steal your contentment. God is not ignoring you. He's orchestrating something beautiful for you. And when that moment finally comes, when the prayer you've been whispering for years is suddenly answered, when the door you've been knocking on finally swings open, when the dream you've been holding in faith becomes your reality, you'll look back and realize that every delay was design, every detour was direction, every tear was transformation. Waiting, that word alone can make the strongest hearts grow restless. We live in a world that celebrates speed, instant results, and quick success. We want answers today, blessings tomorrow, and breakthroughs by next week. But God doesn't rush destiny. He works through process. The waiting season is not wasted time. It's sacred time. It's where God does his deepest work, not around you, but within you. Before God takes you to your promise, he takes you through preparation. Every delay is a classroom, every silence a lesson, every setback a shaping tool in the hands of the potter. When you feel like nothing is happening, that's when the most important things are happening. God is strengthening your character, deepening your faith, and stretching your patience so that when the blessing arrives, you'll have the maturity to handle it. Think about David. He was anointed as king, but he didn't sit on the throne the next day. He went back to the fields, tending sheep, fighting lions and bears, learning humility, obedience, and trust. Years passed before he ever wore a crown, but those hidden years prepared him for public responsibility. If David had skipped the field, he wouldn't have survived the fight with Goliath. If he had skipped the caves, he wouldn't have learned dependence on God. The waiting made him ready. That's the secret many people miss. Waiting is not punishment, it's preparation. The reason God hasn't opened certain doors yet is because he's still building you for what's behind them. He's teaching you to depend on him, to trust his word more than your emotions, to walk by faith when feelings fade. Every prayer that seems unanswered is building endurance in your spirit. Every closed door is strengthening your resolve. Every not yet is God saying, you're not ready, but you will be. In the waiting, God refines your motives. Sometimes you think you're ready for something because your desire is strong, but God knows your heart must be purified first. He delays to remove pride, fear, or self-dependence. He waits until you no longer want the blessing for validation, but for his glory. Then when the right time comes, he releases it, not as a test of your identity, but as a tool for your purpose. Even nature teaches us that waiting produces strength. A tree doesn't grow tall overnight. Its roots go deep in the unseen soil before the branches reach the sky. If the roots are weak, the tree will wither in the storm. The waiting allows your roots of faith to grow strong, unseen, steady, grounded. Because when the winds of life blow, what's unseen will sustain what's visible. Waiting also teaches surrender. It's in the waiting that you learn to let go of control, to stop demanding that God move according to your calendar, and start trusting that he knows the perfect moment. It's in that place of surrender that peace replaces frustration. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start saying, Lord, make me ready when it does. Look at the story of the Israelites. They wandered for 40 years in the wilderness, not because God couldn't lead them faster, but because their hearts weren't ready to possess the promised land. The land was ready, but they were not. God had to prepare them, to teach them faith, obedience, and dependence. Sometimes what you're waiting for is already prepared. It's you whom God is preparing to receive it. And this preparation is not easy. There will be moments of doubt, frustration, and silence. But don't mistake silence for inactivity. God may be quiet, but he's not still. He's arranging the right people, shaping the right opportunities, and aligning every detail for the moment your preparation meets his promise. When you finally step into that season of fulfillment, you'll realize that every tear you cried, every lonely night, every why that went unanswered, it was all part of your preparation. You'll walk into your blessing with gratitude instead of pride, humility instead of arrogance, peace instead of pressure, because you'll know the journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. So if you're in the waiting season today, don't rush it, don't fight it, don't despise it, embrace it. Let God finish his work in you. The same hands that planted the dream will prepare you to carry it. The same God who gave the vision will give you the strength to fulfill it. And when the moment arrives, you'll realize that the waiting wasn't a delay. It was divine design. training you for the destiny that's already written, preparing you in the quiet so you can shine in the calling, molding you in patience so you can move in power, shaping you in silence so you can stand in strength. There will be days when nothing makes sense, when you pray and the heavens feel silent, when you plan carefully but everything falls apart, when you give your best and still face disappointment. In those moments, confusion can feel like a storm inside your soul. You look around and see no direction, no pattern, no explanation. But remember this, just because you can't see what God is doing doesn't mean He's not working. Confusion today does not mean chaos forever. It means God is writing a chapter you haven't read yet. We often think that clarity should come before obedience. We want God to show us the full map before we take the first step. But faith doesn't work that way. God reveals the path one step at a time. He gives you enough light for the next move, not for the entire journey. If He showed you everything at once, you wouldn't need to trust Him. So when you can't understand the plan, trust the planner. When you can't trace His hand, trust His heart. Think about Joseph again. Betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for years for something he didn't do. Imagine the confusion he must have felt. He had a dream from God, yet his reality looked like a nightmare. But when the famine came, when his brothers stood before him, and when he saw the purpose of his pain, everything made sense. The same pit that looked like a place of rejection became the platform of his elevation. What seemed confusing yesterday became clear in the light of God's timing. You see, God's process often begins with confusion. Before He brings revelation, He allows you to walk through mystery. He uses uncertainty to deepen your dependence, to silence your pride, to teach you to listen rather than rush. The fog of confusion is not meant to blind you. It's meant to humble you. It brings you to the place where you say, God, I don't understand, but I still trust you. And that's where true faith is born. Sometimes God allows confusion because He's protecting you. If you understood everything, you might run ahead of His timing or choose something that looks good but isn't right. Confusion slows you down so that His wisdom can catch up with your will. It keeps you close to His presence, listening for His whisper instead of chasing your own ideas. You may think you're lost, but you're actually being led, gently, wisely, perfectly. Think of the disciples after Jesus was crucified. For 3 days, they were lost, broken, afraid. Everything they believed in seemed shattered. They didn't realize that while they were hiding in confusion, God was working in resurrection. On the 3rd day, what looked like tragedy became triumph. Confusion turned to clarity, sorrow to joy, despair to destiny. That's how God works. He takes the seasons that seem meaningless and reveals their purpose at the right moment. In your own life, there are things you've cried about, things you've questioned, things you've said, God, why, about. But one day, maybe not today, maybe not next week, you'll look back and say, now I understand. You'll see that every detour had direction, every delay had intention, every heartbreak had preparation. God doesn't waste pain. He turns confusion into clarity, questions into answers, and tears into testimony. But here's the key. Don't let confusion lead you to frustration. Let it lead you to faith. Instead of saying, God, I don't get it, say, God, I know you're in it. Because the very place that feels like darkness today might be where light is about to break forth. When you're in the middle of the puzzle, the pieces don't make sense. But when the picture is complete, you realize every piece had a purpose. The Bible says, we see through a glass darkly. That means we see in part. Not the full story, not the whole truth. But one day, the picture will be complete. One day, you'll see how every trial worked together for your good. Until that day, walk in trust. Even when you can't see the path, keep walking. Even when you don't understand, keep believing. Even when it hurts, keep holding on. Because confusion is temporary, but clarity is promised. God is not the author of confusion. He is the finisher of purpose. And when the right time comes, the very things that once made you weep will make you worship. The very pain that once broke you will become the story that builds others. The tears that blurred your vision will one day clear your sight. So don't give up in the fog. Don't lose faith in the middle of the mystery. God is turning your confusion into understanding, your frustration into revelation, your struggle into story, your darkness into dawn, your chaos into calling, your waiting into wisdom, and your today into a tomorrow filled with divine clarity. My friend, life will not always make sense. There will be days when you will look up at the heavens and wonder if God has forgotten you. You will pray and hear nothing, dream and see nothing, hope and feel nothing. But faith is not built in the moments of clarity. It is built in the seasons of confusion. It is when you can't see, can't feel, can't understand, yet still say, God, I trust you, that heaven begins to move on your behalf. Every promise has a process. Every miracle has a waiting season. Every destiny has a delay that tests your heart. You may be in that waiting place right now, praying for direction, searching for answers, wondering why the door hasn't opened. But let me remind you, God's silence is not his absence. His delays are not denials. He is not ignoring your cry. He is perfecting his plan. Think about it. Joseph had to sit in prison before wearing a crown. Moses had to spend 40 years in the desert before leading his people to freedom. David had to face rejection before receiving his throne. Even Jesus waited 30 silent years before revealing his glory. Every one of them had moments of confusion, but when God's timing arrived, everything made sense. The same God who guided them is guiding you. The same hand that parted seas, calmed storms, and raised the dead is still at work in your life. You may not see it now, but the pieces are falling into place. The tears you've cried, the doors that closed, the prayers that seemed unanswered, all of it is part of a story that will one day reveal his faithfulness. So don't rush what God is arranging. Don't panic in the process. Don't let impatience push you outside his will. The waiting is not wasted. The silence is not empty. God is preparing you for what he has already prepared for you. When the time is right, everything that confused you will suddenly make sense. The pain, the pauses, the unanswered prayers, the detours that made you question everything. You will see that none of it was random. It was all design. And when that day comes, when the door finally opens, when the dream finally breathes, when the promise finally stands before you, you'll look back and say, now I understand. Now I see why it took so long. Now I know why it had to be this way. Because what felt like delay was development. What looked like silence was strategy. What seemed like loss was love in disguise. So today, lift your head. Keep walking by faith. Keep trusting when you don't understand. Keep believing when you don't see the evidence. Because the God who started your story will finish it perfectly. His plan is not falling apart. It's falling into place. His timing is not late. It's divine. And when he moves, it won't just make sense. It will make you stronger, wiser, humbler, and more grateful. You will stand in the very place you once cried about and realize God was there all along. Everything will make sense soon. Trust his timing, wait in faith, walk in peace, and rest in the promise that